Hey, what's up, soldiers? My name's Greg FPS, and welcome to the Power Up Podcast, episode number 9. Today, it's going to be me and my co-host, GRIZZ. What's going on, man?
What's up, dude?
We have a bunch of awesome topics to talk about today. We have the whole thing about, World War II and zombies. We have DLC 2 talk. We have a bunch of stuff going on there. We also have some really cool ideas for the future of Call of Duty throughout this as well. So I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. And without further ado, GRIZZ, why don't you bring us into the first topic?
All right. Well, there was a leak that came out recently from a YouTuber, I believe, the Family Video Game, something like that.
I think that's right.
We'll have them linked below, but the Call of Duty World War II is a new setting that we may be going into, and I think that's a pretty exciting thing to be looking at.
Yeah, definitely going back to World War II. We already knew that Call of Duty is going to be going to its roots, which is music to pretty much most people's ears. Now, I wasn't sure what time period it was going to be. A lot of people were saying it would be Vietnam. Some people thought World War II. And personally, being a huge World War II buff, I'm actually really happy that it's going to this time period. The really interesting thing about this as well is yesterday when you guys are watching this, there was a supposed trailer leak. And it turned out to be fake and it was not real. But the interesting thing about it was Activision actually striked the video and took it down. So we're thinking that Call of Duty World War II is potentially the title for this Call of Duty game. What do you think about that?
Well, I think the most significant point in history with World War II is the invasion of Normandy. And I think that's primarily what they should focus on, because we haven't had a Call of Duty that focused primarily on that, and we know that Saving Private Ryan began with the invasion of Normandy as they stormed onto the beach. So if we start out just like that, even with the campaign, I think we're in for a real treat.
Yeah, honestly, I think that World at War is one of the best campaigns in general for Call of Duty. And also, World at War is just a really cool and iconic game. So if they're able to bring that to the table, obviously it's going to be Sledgehammer. I'm really interested to see how they're going to pull this off, if it really is and ends up being a World War II game. But another thing to talk about, obviously, is zombies. This is a zombies podcast. So what are we going to be seeing in zombies? I think that there's definitely a potential for Nazi zombies, but then you get into the whole thing where are they even allowed to have swastikas in the games? Because we see this in Black Ops 3. There's no swastikas anymore. It's all iron crosses.
Right.
Do you think they're able to bring that into games
anymore
to market it?
Call of Duty overall is a game that is supposedly rated mature. Am I right on that?
No, yeah, it is.
And so children aren't supposed to be playing this game, but we know a large part of the community is not just children, but teenagers and then people into their late 20s, but they're marketing to a more mature audience, and I think that audience can handle swastikas.
Yeah, I agree, but I think that there are some laws against it or something
You might be right on that, actually.
Germany or maybe
I did hear that recently. What I heard on that was that it will be blocked, as though you were to upload a video and it's blocked in some countries. That sort of effect would happen just with the game title. Call of Duty wouldn't even be allowed to be played or shipped into the country if swastikas were to happen. I'm pretty sure that's what I heard about that.
That makes sense. I mean, they could also do a thing where they change it, but I know that was a big issue for Black Ops 1, especially for Kino or whatever.
And then they have the Iron Cross. That's kind of a Treyarch thing. So I'm not sure if they would be able to cross-reference that, because I mean it would conflict with our storyline a little bit. Even though it's a different storyline, I mean, we don't want copy and paste stuff. We want originality.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think the invasion of Normandy is a perfect place to start, and even with the new zombies mode, if they go off where the campaign is and just start a zombies mode maybe from the very beginning when it all went down, and maybe that's how Germany won in their version of the invasion of Normandy was
I've
zombies.
I've always thought that it would be really cool to have a Call of Duty game
Mhm.
based off fiction if like Nazi Germany won
That'd be
the
sick.
war, because I know they had it with a few other games. I can't think of the name. Wolfenstein, that's what it is. The most
Okay.
recent one. Germany ends up winning, so they have crazy, crazy guns that were mechanicalized and just product produced
Mhm.
rather by Nazis, and they're crazy, and obviously they do so much like testing, and they did so much testing, so it'd be really interesting to see if they did something like that. But think about it this way, like what if you were on the Nazis perspective as well,
Mhm.
fighting against the Americans? That'd be pretty cool to see. But for a zombies mode, what if instead of like you know how Treyarch had the whole zombies campaign as well? It'd be
Mhm.
really cool if they did that with this game as well. So, for example, if you take the place of a Nazi and the people storming the beaches are zombies coming up from like the ocean, that would be
Oh,
crazy
that would be.
cool. I mean, there's so many cool things they could do with World War II because it's already happened. So we have a basis of what we can expect and like where, the war was fought and things like that. But
Mhm.
there's still so much room for originality when it comes to it because they can use a really good, template for what to do
Mhm.
and then completely customize it pretty much.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say is that the successful day that the invasion happened, they labeled it as D-Day. And the actual operation that allowed D-Day to happen when all the countries invaded, it's called Operation Overlord. So there's quite a few different titles that could happen. It could be Call of Duty Operation Overlord. It could be Call of Duty D-Day. But the leak right now, at least, is Call of Duty World War II.
Yeah, I think that title World War II is a little bit too broad,
Mm-hmm.
because it wouldn't really make sense for them to just title a game World War II, because that would kind of be like the only game that would be World War II with a good title, if
Right.
that makes sense. Like, World at War is good, like that's a good title because it's a world war, so World at War. But if they just titled it World War II, they can't do World War II 2,
Right.
like I think they need a new IP, but Call of Duty has been afraid to make those. We saw Ghost didn't do well. They didn't continue that. We saw, Infinite Warfare. They're not going to be making another one of those. Black Ops is the only successful one that is a great IP. 1 through 3 all did fantastic. So I think that Sledgehammer Games, in order to really establish themselves this year, is they need to create a really, really good IP, but also something that they can build off of in the years to come
I
as
agree.
well.
And what about
So
Exo Zombies?
I
Is
really
that
don't want
is that
exos.
gone? When we think about boots on the ground, we don't think of exosuits anymore. But could exo zombies be boots on the ground? Let me ask you that.
I mean, honestly, I don't think that they would continue that story at all. I think it'd be completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see exo zombies being a thing anymore because it was one of those things that was rushed and they didn't end up doing a very good job. And a lot of people in the community, Treyarch is the standard, let's be honest. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we even see this with Infinite Warfare where people don't like it because it's not Treyarch. Well, they need to really establish themselves and create something totally new that is innovative. And I don't think Exo Zombies is going to do that for them. I think that they need to really establish themselves in, if it is World War II, a really cool, Nazi zombie type feel that we got playing, the original like World at War game or
Mm-hmm.
Black Ops 1. They need like a really cool, dark, grungy, like new thing that we
Mm-hmm.
can latch onto, but I also would like them to make it a little bit different, maybe like an open world concept or something like that would be really cool to see. And I think we're going to talk about that later on in the
Yeah.
podcast as well.
So I don't want to debunk exo zombies right now, but I will tell you the exact facts of the storyline as to why it wouldn't make sense with World War II. So the
Okay, go
beginning
for it.
the beginning of the outbreak started with a manticore bomb that I don't know if they were really anticipating Kevin Spacey to be the real guy to set off the zombie outbreak. But there's a Manticore bomb that went off, and that was when that mission happened, when you saw that everybody went down and Manticore was everywhere. And I believe it was the invasion, the attack on Atlas. Everybody was going to attack Atlas, and while they were there trying to attack them, the gates were open for them just to enter. And then they set off the Manticore. All the soldiers that were with the Atlas Corporation were immune to the Manticore because they've been tested on prior to this.
Yeah, it was like a DNA bomb. Yeah.
The one person that was still standing and moving around was Oz, who was a prisoner. And he was a zombie at that time, but he was a special zombie, and that's when they held him, or captured him, and experimented on him. And that's how we got the storyline of zombies to start with exo zombies. So I don't see them bringing Manticore back because that is involved with advanced warfare. And so Manticore is the key element that created zombies in exo zombies. So they'd have to bring back Manticore, and I don't see that happening.
Yeah, that's definitely really interesting. I agree. I don't think they would go back to that ever.
Yeah, I don't see how they would do it. You'd have to go back in time and then explain how Manticore was a thing, and that's too much work, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, even Khan died. Like, the actual actor died.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I just don't see that happening, to be honest. Alright, so I think we pretty much covered World War II and that sort of thing. So let's talk about DLC 2 a little bit. There is no release date yet, but I would expect that we would be getting one pretty soon. I'm thinking that we possibly could be getting a trailer this Tuesday or next Tuesday. It's kind of interesting, though, because there's other things that could be coming up in the near future that could, kind of debate whether, when this is going to be released, because we know that at the end of April is most likely when they're going to be announcing this new Call of Duty that's coming out. So it would make sense for them to have DLC before that, but at the same time, Easter is taking place on the 16th or something like that. I believe it's the 16th.
That's a
so
Sunday.
It wouldn't make sense for them to have the DLC after that weekend, because chances are they're going to be having a special Easter event on COD 4 Remastered.
Yeah.
So I think the perfect date would be the 11th, which is 2 weeks from this Tuesday. I think that would probably work out the best overall. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that, because I did the research and I asked the guy that leaked this information. I had that in my last video, but he said that on the 12th, he was just guessing off the top of his head, April 12th is when we'll hear something from Sledgehammer Games for the actual next Call of Duty. They will be announcing it sometime around then. So I'm thinking it's the 11th because that's a Tuesday. And my best guess is that it's going to happen either this Tuesday or the following Tuesday, which is the 4th of April, if that's true.
Yeah, that would make sense. I definitely think that they're gonna do it before Easter. That would just make the most sense, I think.
Yeah, and according to this guy, they're gonna be announcing the next Call of Duty before Easter as well. But it's right before the Tuesday, right before Easter.
Okay, so that's definitely really something to look into, I guess. Hopefully, we can get some good stuff as far as DLC goes and understand what's going to be on the map and learn more about it this week. Hopefully, that'd be awesome.
What about March Remastered? I mean, that's coming to an end here. We got 5 days left.
Yeah.
And March Remastered's over.
So much for that.
Black Ops 3, what's going on, man? I've been waiting for that DLC 5 announcement. We got 5 days left. Hey, DLC 5 days? Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But I still think if they're going to have a DLC 5 coming in June, that we still might not hear nothing maybe before a month before release. They usually are pretty quiet about that type of stuff.
Yeah, they'd probably wait and do a 2 week before thing, I think. just kind of spring it on us and everyone would freak the hell out.
Oh, the hype would be real, and man, it would not take long for the word to get out at all.
Yeah. So let's talk about DLC 2 a little bit. And, you know, in Black Ops 3, we didn't have the best DLC 2 map.
That's true.
You know, Zetsubou was kind of a disappointment. So I'm really hoping that, you know, Infinity Ward can pull themselves together and make a good DLC 2 map. And, I mean, Raven the Redwoods was really fun, and Horizon Drac was amazing in Black Ops 3. So I really hope that, you know, Infinity Ward keeps that going with the creativity and the newness feel that Rave had, because it did have a really good feel. You know, it was kind of a scary vibe map, and they actually did that pretty well. A lot better than Zetsubou, because Zetsubou was kind of eerie, but it wasn't really scary like we were promised. So
right. Well, let's think about the DLCs here for a second, because the gravity of the situation with Treyarch is Horizon Drac, and that's big for their storyline. And I don't see Raven the Redwoods being the Horizon Drac map. We still might have that to come, because it was kind of mediocre. The Easter egg wasn't that complex, and we're going to talk about Easter egg improvements in a little bit, but it wasn't that complex, and Horizon Drac was way more advanced, in my opinion. So I think that we got a map, but I don't think it was the Horizon Drac of the Infinite Warfare Season Pass.
Yeah, let's definitely hope for that. But as far as like the DLC goes, and you know, the story being told, Lee Ross has been tweeting out a bunch of quotes recently about Arthur McIntosh is his name. So we're gonna read the quotes and kind of go through it. First, Lee Ross was kind of like leaking parts of his name, and then he said, "Who is Arthur McIntosh?" with the sunglasses emoji, because we know that he does that every single time now. He overuses that. But the first quote was on March 20th, and he said, "Success can be found. You've just got to be willing to lose everything along the way to finding it." So that's really interesting. We don't really know too much about this Arthur McIntosh character. So I'm just going to read the rest of the quotes, and then we're going to talk about them. So the next one was on March 21st. "We must seize every opportunity. Our future is full of potential, even when things appear to be at their darkest." Sunglasses emoji. Next one was on March 22nd. "As we get older, we realize money isn't the most valuable asset in life. Time is. And I want more time, lots more."
Whoa.
Sunglasses emoji again. "What are we but micro moments in time? What if we could expand that and make it infinite? I'd want in on that." Sunglasses emoji. And the last and final one that we got was on the 24th, which is Friday. And he said, "I founded this damn company, and I'll take it whatever direction I see fit."
Okay, I got an idea of who he is.
Yeah, I do too.
Especially after you read them all. Okay. So this guy is trying to discover time travel. And what's interesting about this is that we haven't had time travel introduced into this zombie storyline. As far as we know, this storyline takes place within a series of films being, I'm not going to say recorded, but overseen by a figure we know as Willard Wyler. And these films, I don't know how you time travel between these films unless he was a character himself. So I think Arthur McIntosh, I don't know if he's going to be a fictional character that we may never see, but I do think we may see him, and he may be a scientist.
Okay, so I thought of something completely different from what you thought of with the whole time travel thing. I think that this is Arthur McIntosh is like a scientist, like you said, but I think he's trying to find maybe either the Fountain of Youth or immortality.
Nice.
And I think that maybe Willard Wyler is trying to get that whole immortality thing. And maybe that could lead to bring his daughter back, who died in Raven Redwoods from the slasher, and also his wife, who died from cancer.
We know that they created their own company. the
Yes.
daughter and her boyfriend. But do we know anything about the boyfriend?
It was her husband.
Her
actually.
husband. Do we know his name?
We do know his name. I can't think of it right now, but he was on Willard Wyler's writing team, and that's how he met Leona, or I think was her name, which was his daughter.
Was his name Arthur?
No,
Okay, so we may be looking at a different person.
I think it was like Matthew or something. I don't remember.
Okay. Because it would make sense that this is now her boyfriend sort of trying to find a loophole within the films.
Yeah.
But didn't he die too? They both died.
Yeah, they both died from the slasher.
They did. Okay, so, yeah, interesting. Arthur McIntosh.
Man, I really hope they can think of something cool to do, because I was
real.
really surprised at how much storyline was actually in Raven the Redwoods. Like, it definitely surprised me a lot. I didn't think there was going to be much story. I didn't think they could do much. But after getting all those quotes from all the charms, I hope they continue that into the future, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Let's see, are we to Easter egg improvements yet? What? Yeah, okay. Well, I got some Easter egg improvements to talk about with this same topic. If
For DLC 2.
Yeah, if we want to move into kind of what DLC 2 needs to succeed, and also Easter egg improvements with this, I think that storyline, especially for Arthur McIntosh, you know, in GRIZZ Viollent, when we saw the Dr. Groff cutscene, what do you think about it being shown in gameplay just as much as Cypher's?
I would really like that. I think that that is kind of the key to having a good Easter egg.
Yeah.
Because when you look back at some of the iconic Easter eggs that we've had, we kind of hashed that out for pretty much all of the good Easter eggs. Like Mob of the Dead, right? You're building the plane, you're escaping, you're continuing that story of what happened with those characters. Even on Origins, we have to free Samantha, and there's steps, but
that's one of the first points
steps.
with the headphones. That's one of the very first points when we saw that being a thing through gameplay, was the headphones in Mob of the Dead.
Yeah, and that's what we named this podcast after, pretty much.
Pretty much,
the Power Up Podcast, with those, you know, earphones from Mob of the Dead. But yeah, I think that driving a story is definitely very important. We saw that even on Shangri-La, where we had the story of Brock and Gary, and we kind of had to like help them escape and not die. And one interesting thing I just want to mention, this is like totally kind of off topic, that I was rewatching Milo's interview with Jason Blundell, and Milo asked Jason Blundell if Brock was Russman, and he had a smirk and said pass.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Which is kind of like crazy, because I know
what a crazy question.
Yeah, it's really interesting, but Brock and Gary were both killed on Zetsubou. We had that cipher in that universe. But it's something to think about, definitely. But I mean, even driving the story with, you know, shooting Earth at the end of Moon, destroying the moon on Horizon Drac, that's driving the story. Literally, most of the Easter egg steps are driving the story this entire time, which is so pivotal, I think, to really a great Easter egg. And I think that they really need to establish the story, this DLC, to drive that forward.
I don't see holograms being a bad deal either. I mean, holograms, when you see that hologram, the Groff cutscene, you instantly connect with it. You say, okay, this is a point in time, a point in history that we're watching. It's just already set in stone that this is what's happening. And maybe it goes to black and white. They can do all kinds of things with this, but
yeah, that really set the tone, I think.
It did.
For,
it really did.
Iconic Horizon Drac really was. Like, that was just a whole new way of storytelling that we had never seen before.
For real. And they could continue that with Infinite Warfare, and that's not copying. That's learning from the best and becoming great yourself. And that's what I think they're trying to do and continuing to do. And that's what I love about zombies, is because we have more menus now than we've ever had, at least in zombies mode. And I think that we might see more in the future. They've passed weapons in. what's stopping them from patching more stuff in?
That's true. Definitely agree. I mean, I think that the way they still told the story was pretty much perfect. I mean, they told us some important details, but we didn't really know where it was going to go from that because it was kind of left at a cliffhanger. So as long as they continue that, I would be more than happy to see where they're going to go because, Lee Ross is a good storyteller, I think, but it just isn't really understood yet by the community, I think.
That's true, and there's small details still missing. Like, one question I still have is when they collect those soul keys. Let's start with the first one. Zombies in Spaceland. We collect the first soul key. Does that soul key just teleport us? And then what happens to that soul key? I don't see it connected onto any of our characters. We're not carrying it. It's just gone. Just little things like that I wish were thought of.
Yeah.
So these are just little improvements that we're talking about right now. Things that we think could be improved. Pretty much being picky, but we definitely like the direction it's going. It's just that we're ready for the next level, and game modes still haven't been introduced, and so we still have questions as to the direction of zombies and where it could go. And that kind of brings me into the last topic we got, which deals with the survival mode that we're all dealing with and maybe where it could go in the future. We have zombie crates, something that we haven't been introduced to ever. We've had gobblegums in the past, and supply drops? They weren't Nexo zombies, but they were in the multiplayer. So now that more is being introduced into zombies, what do you think of an open world concept? Do you think we'll ever get to that point, or do you think game modes and survival will be the first step?
I think innovation is going to play a huge role if we ever did get an open world concept because, people get sick of the same thing. We're sick of exosuits, we're sick of jetpacks. We're sick of, people were sick of, like other things. So Call of Duty was like, okay, we need to innovate. We need to change things up. And now taking a step back and going back to the roots, they also need to innovate because we can't have the same thing that we had many years ago and still be as successful as we're hoping moving forward. So I think that an open world concept is definitely plausible. I don't know per se if they would get right into that yet. I think that Call of Duty and at least Zombies hasn't really evolved to that level yet. But I think that there's definitely a possibility for that in the future.
All right. Well, I got an entire concept here that I wrote up for the open world zombies concept. So it all deals with pretty much the very starting point when we had the idea that this might be possible, and it was the introduction of Black Ops 3. Remember Nightmares mode when we said we'll have a full campaign, and then all of a sudden they mentioned the safe house, but they didn't tell us what the safe house was. But where were our minds going at that time? That's what I wrote this open world zombies concept off of. Where was my mind at during that moment? Because they said this safe house was a place you could go in between checkpoints.
Yeah.
And so that was very interesting, and I thought it might be somewhat of an open world campaign. So I came up with this concept where you select a mission team. These teams are factions within the safe house. The safe house is a place where rewards and bounties are collected. You remember the bounties that we had in Black Ops 3. It's somewhat like that, except you go to an actual vendor to collect it. Think Destiny, because we're thinking of a bigger scope here with zombies. If this is going to go ever to an open world concept, this is where our mindset has to be. Each place within the open world is round-based, because we're used to round-based in zombies. So you travel to an area, and while you do whatever mission on that area, which we would consider a map, it's round-based. This means your bounties will reflect a challenge to either collect an item for that faction leader or rescue a group of survivors just to increase your rank. So rescuing a group of survivors was just an idea I had, but ways to increase your rank while you're on this map. It's an open world thing, so there's different challenges you'll have to do. You guys can let your mind flow wherever you want with that. Maps will be based off the location you choose within the open world. Round-based with challenges to complete your bounties. It's a bigger idea than what we're used to now, but I want it to go somewhere great, and that's my idea.
I mean, that's definitely pretty good. I don't like the rescuing survivors thing, though, to be honest.
What does that make you think of?
It makes me think of Infection or the Burger Town map, and that was absolutely horrible.
Yep. I agree.
But I mean, if they can actually have smart AI that isn't, running the opposite direction where you're leading them like they did in that map.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if we'll get right away to an open world at any point, maybe not even within the next 10 years, but like you said, the first steps will be introducing game modes, and I think before they do that, they have to get used to the idea of setting up polls, because if they set up polls and we can vote whether we like it or not, then they can gauge the community in ways that they really truly want to. And that's what they're sort of doing on Twitter now with the multiplayer featured playlists, at least with Infinite Warfare, where they're introducing a new playlist every week. So that's why we're seeing patch notes come in every week. Even though they're minor changes, they've now included a featured playlist every week that changes. But that's on the multiplayer side. So on Zombies' end, if we got game modes, I think the community would thrive during the dead periods.
We definitely need new game modes, and I think that's something that Sledgehammer is listening to the community about.
I hope so.
They did a really good job at least listening in, Advanced Warfare.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was mostly multiplayer stuff that they were listening to, but I think that
they had updates for a long time. It was like a year and a half after the game. They were still putting updates on Twitter about it.
Mm-hmm.
So they care about their game. Sledgehammer's a good company.
Yeah, they released a lot of new weapons after the game was done.
And whether they had a lot of people playing it or a little bit, they still cared as though everyone was there.
It's true.
So I don't think Exo Zombies will be returning, just based off the Mana Core situation we talked about with the campaign. But I would like to see 100% new game modes introduced, just a little bit more than the survival mode that we're used to, and all of these game modes can take place on the maps that they introduce within the season passes.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this week.
Yeah, definitely, dude.
Definitely a great episode. I mean, we talked a lot about the future of zombies, whether it's World War II or just Infinite Warfare that we're in now, or even Treyarch and even an open world concept. So, anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed episode number 9 with me and GRIZZ. This has been the Power Up Podcast. Every single Sunday we bring this to you guys. So let us know if you are enjoying it by letting us know down in the comment section and all that stuff. But without further ado, guys, we're going to close it out here. Do you have any last words?
No, just let us know down below if you guys like World War II as a concept, if you like, Operation Overlord or D-Day. What are you guys' thoughts on the title for COD 2017? And also your thoughts for Zombies. Are you excited for where it's going to go? Or game modes as well. What kind of game modes do you want to see? These are all questions that I'd like to read about.
Yeah. So anyways, guys, thank you for watching. We'll see you next week with a brand new episode. And obviously on our channels throughout the week, we'll be keeping you guys up to date with whatever gets released and all that stuff. So we'll see you guys later. Peace out.
See you guys.